Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Your hosts, Joseph and Michelle Whalen, a husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics, are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom.
Welcome to Insights into Entertainment. This is episode 36, A Lifetime of Happiness.
Aww.
I am your host, Joseph Whalen, and my lovely and talented co-host, Michelle Whalen.
Hi, everyone.
How are you doing today, Michelle?
I am cold. How are you?
Yes, we finally did have weather change here, although...
We went from 95 degrees one day to 65 degrees the next.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yay, fall.
It's no wonder everybody's getting sick.
Yeah, exactly.
So we got a pretty busy show today.
We do.
In Disney Detective, we will talk about Disney being sued by a man with autism and why that's happening. We'll talk about Disney's domination at the box office coming to a close and looking at the 2020 movie year and seeing where they'll stand. Then we have Disneyland's first ever customer using his lifetime ticket every year since 1955. Then in our entertainment news, we have some Star Wars news. The screenwriters have promised to tell us who is Rey, which is kind of nice since it's the last movie in the series. So,
Right. Might as well do it now.
Exactly. Don't save it till later.
Right.
We'll talk about Stranger Things being renewed for another season. And then we have some information on the Billy Joel anthology TV series that we are eagerly anticipating. Let's get right into it.
Okay.
Go for Disney Detective.
So it seems that Disney, obviously, is in the news for this policy that had changed a couple of years ago, actually. And what it is that the court case is actually finally getting a date. So the lawsuit is actually against Disney for because they changed their policy for guests with disabilities. So back in the day, if you had any sort of disability, you usually were able to just go to the front of the line and not have to wait or have a minimal wait. And they really didn't require you to prove anything for it. Now, there were special cards that people with more severe ailments, received, to get a little bit more special treatment. But basically, if you had an electric scooter or were in a wheelchair, you were able to kind of go to the front of the line. And a lot of that, too, was because the rides themselves, the queue line wasn't equipped for
to navigate
for people
right.
in wheelchairs or electric scooters. But then what had happened was there was a couple of travel companies from like the New York area where people were hiring them to be their quote unquote tour guide throughout the park. And these people were basically going to the park and quote unquote, cutting the line really because nobody had a disability.
Right.
They would just, somebody would kind of pretend and they'd get one of these little passes, they'd bring a doctor's note or something and they were able to cut the line. Well, when word got out about this, Disney changed their policy. So now the policy is you still have to get this medical card from guest relations, but for most of the rides, when you go to get on the ride, they give you an appointment time, sort of like a fast pass to return, but you're not waiting, in the fast pass line. There's a separate line, but you're still coming back at a separate time. Well, the lawsuit was actually filed in 2014 by a man with autism who said that this was actually more detrimental to him than just waiting, in line. And they were saying, that it wasn't fair for people, that had certain diseases or certain conditions, because just giving them a return time is almost just as bad because of, the severe, autism that they might have, because they have to follow, a certain path and a certain timeline. And, you telling them to come back in 45 minutes is, for them, in some cases, they feel just as bad as having to just sit and wait in line. So we'll see, where this goes. For us, we've gone to Disney. We've, used electric scooters. We had my mom at one point, in a scooter, and it did kind of help to ease, the trip. And I understand, for some families, with kids, waiting in line is hard, but you kind of have to know that going to Disney,
right,
that you're going to wait in line. That's part of it.
And that's the thing. Like, the first time that we went, I wound up using a scooter because of the issues I had with my back.
Right.
And we were able, this was before their policy change,
right.
we were able to take advantage of that and
And we weren't
gain the lines.
expecting
Right.
it.
I
Right.
didn't get the scooter for the sole purpose of doing that.
Right.
So, to a certain extent, I can understand the frustration and the need medically for that. But I think the accommodation that Disney made is more than fair as a compromise for that, because you can't accommodate everyone. And,
Right.
And Disney isn't obligated to accommodate everyone.
Right.
If you're incapable, like there are numerous rides that I don't get on because I have a bad back.
Right.
I simply don't fit. What am I going to do? Sue Disney because they're not fat people friendly?
Right.
Like that concept itself is just idiotic. I'm sorry.
Right.
The ability to just sue a company because they're not convenient for you. You're welcome to take your business elsewhere. I'll tell you what, take your business down the street to Universal and see how much more accommodating Universal is.
Right.
You'll find Universal's far less accommodating than Disney ever is.
And we actually kind of ran into the change when we actually went to Disneyland. If you remember when we were out there a couple of years back and you had the scooter and we went to go on the Haunted Mansion and they said, oh, you have a scooter? Oh, here, return back. And they gave us a little pass to return back in like 20 minutes or something.
Right.
Because again, their queue line couldn't fit the scooter, but they didn't want us to just, cut the line,
Right.
So it was,
and even taking that the next step further, you take a look at how much money Disneyland, Disney World has spent on reshaping their queues to accommodate people with disabilities. They've spent millions of dollars on their queue lines now to accommodate that.
Yeah.
So everyone is created equal. No one gets special treatment. They had a policy in place where people were getting special treatment, and kudos to Disney for actually shutting that down.
Right.
Because you had a few bad apples who were trying to take advantage of it.
Right.
If you're going to sue anybody, sue the people that forced Disney to change their policy. Don't sue Disney for it, because they're already trying to accommodate you and make it as convenient for people with disabilities as possible.
Yeah, so the lawsuit...
Oh my God, wait, am I defending Disney?
You are. So the lawsuit goes on to argue Disney's current policy that treats people with all disabilities the same, rather than recognizing that some impairments require special treatment. So a judge has ruled that the lawsuit will go to trial to federal court on February 18th. The article came from WESH 2 News, and Disney had sent them a statement saying, Disney Parks has an unwavering commitment to provide an exclusive and accessible environment for all our guests. We fully comply with the ADA Act and requirements and believe that the legal claims are without merit.
And I would, as much as it pains me to say so...
Everybody, take note.
As much as it pains me to say so, I would have to agree with Disney here. And I'll bet you that Disney more than complies with the ADA Act.
I believe they go above and beyond, when it comes to that.
As much as I bash Disney for some of their business practices, they are exceedingly accommodating for disabilities, allergies,
Yeah, we talked about
everything.
last week the food, and not only the options of the plant-based food for vegans, but just the gluten and the allergies and everything else. They do go way beyond, any other theme park, I think, in my opinion, or restaurant or entertainment.
You would be
as a whole.
fortunate to go to Disney if you have disabilities because of how accommodating they are.
Yeah.
It's not just a matter of, providing wheelchairs. They've reformed their queues. They've set up complete systems for this. They've got...
There are special ride cars for certain rides. Like, obviously, a roller coaster, somebody that's in a wheelchair.
Well, you can't medically
do that. But for a lot of the other rides, they made special ride vehicles where you don't even have to get out of your wheelchair. You just...
And even if you step back and you take a look at Mission Space, where Mission Space was a centrifuge-based ride that people with certain medical conditions could not enjoy. So what did they do? So they came up literally with a second version of the ride so you could still go through it without having that medical risk.
Exactly.
So, Disney's totally in the right on this one. So, next story.
So Disney has dominated the box office for years, but experts are saying that they might actually have some challenges with 2020. So it's kind of like the fourth straight year in a row that they have been reigning. But now Hollywood insiders are saying that, things might be going south for next year. But obviously they have, things like Marvel and Star Wars, and obviously with the Fox merger, Avatar is now, under it. But that this year was very strong. And next year, they might actually have some competition from other studios like Universal and Sony. In 2018, they ruled the box office with Black Panther, Avengers Infinity Wars, Incredibles 2. They set a domestic box office record with $3 billion, and then topping $7 billion globally. And then they broke records this year. They broke records once they got to July, and that was in part to, the Lion King movie, Captain Marvel, Toy Story 4, Aladdin, Avengers Endgame, and obviously, with Avengers Endgame, they surpassed, quote unquote,
cheating, but they managed to get past
Avatar. And yet we still have, for the end of this year, we still have Frozen 2 coming out, and then obviously Star Wars, which are both
coming out this year?
I think so. I think I heard rumors about it. And both are probably gonna, gross over $1 billion, each by the end of the year. So looking at what, 2020 has so far, really not a whole lot, as much of a powerhouse as this year, obviously it was. So you have Pixar's Onward and Soul, which will be coming to the theaters in March and June. Then obviously the live action remake of Mulan will be in the end of March. Then Marvel's Black Widow will hit theaters in May, and the Eternals will arrive in November. And then there's Artemis Fowl, which is based on a sci-fi series, and that is going to premiere in May. And then there's Jungle Cruise, which I didn't even remember coming. I probably do, but I blocked it out maybe, which is based on the Disneyland ride and is going to be starring Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt, and that debuts in July. So
chock full of corny jokes?
Yeah, probably. I hope. So they're saying, obviously there's going to be, hopefully the sequel of, Captain Marvel coming. And then you have, some newer stuff from Pixar. But obviously there's no Avengers on the docket. And that was really kind of that big push.
Yeah, you're not going to get the kind of Avengers push with Black Widow that you got for a whole, star-studded cast of characters.
It's going to be, you're going to get a fraction of it.
Plus, everyone knows how Black Widow story ends. So.
Right. So it's kind of like, oh yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do and who kind of comes to the forefront for next year's.
So okay, and I want to put my Disney bashing hat on here.
Okay.
So when their box office numbers drop below
your best friend in the whole wide world, your BFF,
drop below their expectations, who's going to take the blame for it? Is Bob Iger going to take the blame?
No, not your BFF.
Or is Bob Iger already trying to find a scapegoat for this?
It's Fox's problem.
Yeah, he's going to blame it on someone else.
He's going to blame it on Fox because they spent all their money buying Fox and not putting it into more movies for.
I'm sure he's already got a scapegoat lined up. Every good plan starts with a good scapegoat.
Right, absolutely.
So, okay. So our next feel-good Disney story.
Yeah, I had to make sure to kind of,
Well, I defended Disney once, I bashed them once, so this will be a
right. So there's your balance. So Disneyland's first ever customer has been using his lifelong ticket every year since 1955. So Dave McPherson was a 22-year-old college student back in July of 1955. He was watching Disneyland's opening festivities on television on July 17th, and he marveled at all the celebrities that were enjoying the park and thought to himself, why not go and be one of the first commoners to go? So he turned the TV off, hopped onto his motorcycle, and rode approximately 10 miles from Long Beach, California to Anaheim. He walked to the nearest ticket booth and just waited online. And that was at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, hang on a second. If he waited online, how's he the first customer?
Well, because he got to the ticket booth and he just stood and waited.
Well, if he's waiting on... Oh, so there wasn't a line there.
No, there wasn't. Okay. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. He was the first one there.
Okay.
So with his ticket, he received a complimentary card, but didn't actually get to use it because the long ride back to Long Beach awaited him. Long ride. It was only 10 miles.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like he was walking. He had a motorcycle.
Was there since 2 in the morning.
Yeah,
so.
That's true. So luckily for him, he received a lifetime pass for being the first commoner ever to enter the park and enjoyed his privilege, and he has enjoyed his privileges annually ever since. He takes his wife Wanda to the happiest place on earth along with a couple of his friends. And what was neat was the friends that he frequents the park with. The guy friend, he had actually been at the park on opening day as well, but they didn't know each other back then. It was
funny.
Actually years later that they, found each other and because of their common interest of Disney and realized, oh my God, we were both there on opening day. He said that seeing a line of 6,000 people behind him was something he would never forget. For its opening day, Disney executed a televised event which was open to Walt Disney's family, the media, and invited guests who were mostly celebrities of all kind. And we actually have... We've watched it. There were DVDs that came out. So it is really kind of cool to watch. It was this big media, event.
With Ronald Reagan hosting.
With Ronald Reagan and Art
Linkletter.
Right. Yeah. And, various technical difficulties, happening because it was all done live.
Who played Davy Crockett?
I can't think of it.
But he made an appearance
Yeah, he made an appearance, so it was, and obviously all the kids that were there were all celebrity kids.
Yeah.
Kurt
Russell.
Kurt Russell was there. Yeah. So during the park's opening, So again, it was a televised event for all of that. So then the park's opening to the public the next day, Walt Disney actually was there, but then kind of disappeared shortly after the opening of the gate, leaving many people, kind of disappointed. But despite that, he says it was still one of the best days, ever for him. So that's kind of cool.
He had to go smoke. They didn't have any smoking in the park.
Right, exactly. So yeah, so there was kind of a nice little, first ever paying guest.
And how many lifetime passes has Disney ever given out to anything?
I don't know. I don't know how many they ever gave out, but that's kind of cool that, he's still using it, so many years later.
I suspect they are few and far between.
Yeah.
So that does it for Disney Detective this week.
Disney Detectives is done. I'll take off my ears now.
There you go.
Oh,
you didn't put them on this week.
I didn't. I should have.
We'll come back with entertainment news. So tell us, who is Rey? Tell us a Star Wars story.
I don't know. We have to go to the movie and find out.
No spoilers?
No spoilers. So, The Rise of Skywalker, the screenwriters have promised to answer the question, who is Rey? So it'll obviously be the last chapter of the Skywalker saga. In the final installment, the trilogy is actually picking up, the last installment of the trilogy is actually going to pick up sometime after The Last Jedi ended, and it'll answer and raise some pressing questions about the Star Wars universe. The screenwriter spoke with Empire about two pivotal questions that shape the movie. One is obvious and hard-pressing, and obviously fans want to know, who is Rey? In the interview, he said that that the ever-present inquiry will be answered not only literally, but metaphorically. How can Rey become the spiritual heir to the Jedi? We keep coming back to who is Rey, and, and nothing really kind of answered that, but more importantly, who is she as a character? Obviously, Kylo Ren kind of answered it and was like, you're nobody. But that was really more, a cop-out that, that the fans kind of felt with that. So now they kind of went back and rewrote. So now we're going to have more of, an answer. He said that, that there's obviously something within her bloodline. And obviously after, again, rise of, the Jedi and just kind of like throwing it, out, made it kind of, it's nothing, but really it's going to be something. So there's that underlining thing.
And what I take away from this is J.J. Abrams' first step to roll back that absolute
horror film.
Yeah, that travesty of justice that was The Last Jedi.
Right.
Because, Abrams set it up to be this mystery of who she is.
Right.
And then Rian Johnson just totally screwed the pooch on that one.
Right.
And ruined the entire thing. And now Abrams has to come back in and save his original vision.
Right.
So it should be interesting. I just hope he doesn't have to burn too much of Rise of Skywalker hatching up all the stuff that Rian Johnson screwed up.
Yeah. So you only have to wait couple more months because December 20th is right around the corner.
Nice. Looking forward to it. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it'll be better than Last Jedi.
I'm sure.
I don't think it could be much worse. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So tell us about Stranger Things.
So the Duffer brothers have signed a multi-year overall pact on the back of their 1980 sci-fi series, which is reportedly one of the streaming service's most watched original series. The streaming giant has handed out a fourth season renewal to the breakout hit Stranger Things, which we kind of knew, but they also gave the creators, Matt and Ross Duffer, a multi-year film and TV deal overall that's worth about 9 figures. The news arrives nearly 3 months after the third season of the 1980s sci-fi drama returned after almost a year of being off the air. A return date for the fourth season has not been determined. So when they said, the streaming service, which normally doesn't release their viewership data, announced on July 8th that some 40.7 million household accounts had watched part of season 3 since July 4th, when the third season launched. That's more than any other film or series in just 4 days. And obviously, the whole show kind of took off. It ended up, being nominated for a number of Emmy Awards and actually winning some. The stars, the kids were all, unknowns, and now,
now they're doing Sprint commercials.
Now they're doing Sprint commercials and other, things as well. The cast actually, the kids actually ended up making 12 times their previous salary deals. From when they first started, and were basically making $250,000 per episode, and the adult stars were making close to $350,000 per episode in just this last year. So it's unsure, right now if season 4 will actually be the last one, because the Duffer brothers had really been open about it from the get-go, that they knew it wasn't going to be a long-running series, and they said that it was either going to be somewhere between 4 or 6 seasons that they were going to do, and then they, but it's cool that now there's, there's other things that are in the works, that they're going to be doing. So,
right.
Even if Stranger Things, comes to an end, there's something else that they'll be part of.
Well, and I think one of the, technical issues that you run into when you're doing a series like this is the production time, the season runs, and you're working with kids. The kids grow up real fast in that age frame.
And that was kind of, you definitely saw it in season, 3 versus season 1. And, they do have to kind of move quickly if they, if they don't want it to be 2 years later or something like that. Kind of like, the same thing with the Harry Potter season, the series of movies. They had to kind of move quickly through them because they didn't want them, to age 5 years between one film, and the next.
Yeah. Cool. So Stranger Things is up for another season, and we've got
at least another season. Don't know how many more.
Did they establish anything as far as any spin-offs or anything like that?
No, it sounds like it's, it really kind of sounds like they're, the Duffer brothers are just going to write and produce other TV shows, and
but not related to Stranger Things.
Nothing, I could definitely see them still kind of sticking with like the 80s theme,
right?
Because that's just so much of their their background, their childhood.
Well, and everyone loves that, even with your current season of American Horror Story.
Oh my God,
everyone's flashing back to the 80s.
Right. So for all of us 40-somethings, 30-somethings, it's just cool to relive that and see that. So
yeah. Speaking of the 40-somethings, oh wait, he's not 40-something. Let's talk a little about Billy Joel.
This was something that I actually hadn't heard about, and I was listening to the radio the other day, and they kind of did a quick little blurb on it, so then I looked it up. So Billy Joel, they're actually going to be doing an anthology TV series based on his music. So Billy Joel's catalog is populated with vivid storylines and popular characters, enough apparently to fuel a TV series. MGM is partnering with Universal Music Publishing Group to develop a scripted anthology series based around the songwriter's music, according to The Hollywood Reporter. The show is going to be titled Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, which is named after Joel's 1977 track of the same name, and he actually had told Stephen Colbert in an interview that it's ranked as one of his 5 bests. Each episode of the project will build around his famous lyrics, including characters like The Stranger, The Piano Man, Mama Leone, and Sergeant O'Leary. Joel worked with his music team to kind of revamp the songs with new arrangements. Kevin Fox, who worked on Law & Order SVU, is creating and executive producing the show alongside Joel and his songwriter and the songwriter's longtime producing partner, Stephen Cohen, who worked on the 2017 documentary Billy Joel, New York State of Mind. So the president of MGM TV, MGM TV's development and production told The Hollywood Reporter that the focus is less on Billy Joel's life and more on the stories inside the catalog of the classic songs. So with, everything that happened, the last couple of years with Bohemian Rhapsody being such a popular movie, and then obviously Rocket Man, the singer actually told Rolling Stone in May that he doesn't have enough objectivity to do one. He said, I was going to write an autobiography at one time, and I did. And he said there just wasn't enough sex, drugs, and rock and roll in it for the publisher, so I gave the advance back, and I said, F it, that's me. I don't know if, I'm interesting enough to make a movie out of my life. I've lived it. I don't want to be redundant. So I thought that was, a very Billy Joel
that definitely sounds
comment,
like a typical Billy Joel comment.
Yeah, so, he kind of feels like, you know what, my life isn't, all that exciting, but it definitely, sounds like doing it from the perspective of the songs and the characters and how he came up with them
and
is an interesting take
Billy
on it.
Joel is a storyteller.
Absolutely.
You get that from his music. Mm-hmm. We talked last week comparing Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen.
Right.
Where Bruce Springsteen tells his stories. Right. And Billy Joel tells everybody else's story.
Right, right.
And he's much more comfortable with that than obviously his own story. Billy Joel's had a very interesting life.
Oh, absolutely.
You look at his early career and some of the setbacks that he had and how he came up with Piano Man, and, the story behind that was fantastic. And then, he was married to a supermodel.
Yeah.
He went to Russia and played Russia at like the height of the Cold War. Like all of this stuff, he's so modest about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he doesn't think it was significant stuff, but in the grand scheme of things, it was incredibly impactful.
And then
to
he obviously had, so many downfalls that he was able to rise up.
Yeah.
The different car crashes and, the different bouts with, alcoholism and things like that. And, after Christy Brinkley, a couple more failed, marriages and things like that, but yet still going out on tour and kind of he stopped writing new music for others. He still writes. And
when he went from writing rock and roll to writing classical music, it was a whole, earth-shattering change. There's a story behind all of that.
Right, right.
And, I don't know if it's that he's just so modest he doesn't think it's significant, or it's one of those, they're too personal for him
that could be too.
To talk about, to give away. They're his stories.
Yeah.
And he's always been the type of person who's written about other people's stories.
Yeah, yeah.
And every song he has is a story that his music is so diverse. The stories behind the music is so diverse. I mean, you go from, the fall of the steel industry with Allentown to, the fall of the fishing industry in Maine and New York. And it's like, the different journeys he's taken his audience through.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're all, I'm sure there's elements of truth in everything. I'm sure he's pulled the stories from people that he's talked to.
He knew or talked to, yeah.
But he's always been about telling other people's stories. So this will be interesting.
Right.
Now with this anthology, he's not appearing in it, is he?
No, it doesn't sound like it. It's basically, it's his music. It's not about...
So this is a step deeper into looking at the characters and stories he's created in his music.
Guess, I kind of wonder if it's more along the lines of the Broadway show Moving Out. Right. And, is it that where, or is it a deeper dive in who was...
Mama Leone.
Right, and who was the stranger. Obviously we know the Piano Man was him.
Right.
So I wonder if it's going to be more... like that, or is it going to be more like the Broadway show?
Yeah. It should be interesting.
Yeah, look forward to it.
That's all we had for entertainment news this week.
It is.
We will be back with our insightful picks of the week, which I didn't put mine on the show notes to surprise you.
Oh.
I'm going to surprise you. Yes, we'll be back.
Okay.
I bow to you, my dear.
Now I'm so intrigued. I can't wait. So my insightful pick, I'm going to try and keep with the theming of the time of year. So obviously we're in October. It's Halloween season. Our favorite time of year. Yay.
And why is it our favorite time of year?
Well, it's Halloween.
Has nothing to do with the fact that our anniversary is on Halloween.
Yes, we actually got married on Halloween. So Halloween is also our wedding anniversary. So it's special to that.
And why we do that? Because it was your favorite holiday.
Because it was my favorite holiday, and this way you wouldn't forget
I would never forget our anniversary. Yeah.
And our daughter was actually born a couple of days before Halloween, so she's an October baby. So October is just a...
And my son was born in October.
Right.
My mother was born in October. So October's a pretty busy month.
So October's a very busy month for us. So I'm going to, so for my insightful picks, I'm going to try and keep with the theme. And we were kind of, talking earlier that maybe we'll even do a special Halloween episode.
Yep.
So I got like a little less than a month now to plan. So,
right.
So this was actually a movie that a friend of mine who was very into horror movies had suggested that I watch. And thankfully, when I watched it during the day. In the morning with all the lights on, because if I had watched it at night, it was very disturbing. It is called Hereditary. And so a brief outline of the movie is when the matriarch of the Graham family passes away, her daughter and grandchildren begin to unravel cryptic and increasingly terrifying stories about their ancestor. Trying to outrun the sinister fate that they have inherited. The release date was actually on June 8th of last year. It's streaming on Amazon Prime, and it's just creepy. If you want to be surprised by it, don't go to Wikipedia and read what the plot is, because the plot basically tells you the entire...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert, because I went there to kind of get more information, and when I read it, I'm like, that's exactly what happened. And I probably would have been upset.
Right.
So the whole suspense of it, of everything. There were, and I think what was so great about watching it on Amazon was like when something happened, I was able to pause and go... What?
Take a breath.
Did that just and like I rewound it, like, so definitely if you had seen it in a theater, you would have had a different,
Right.
But definitely the whole, the creepy aspect of, you're watching it and the focus is on, the main character right there, but there's something going on right outside of your vision and you're like, holy freaking wow. Yeah, so definitely not for those that don't like horror movies, not for kids, definitely. A little bit of satanic undertones, with stuff with like the grandmother, and
It's always good to mix a little Satan in there.
Yeah. The one daughter, because it's a mother. It's Toni Collette, who was the mother in Sixth Sense.
Okay.
She plays the mother in this. Gabriel Byrne is the father. And then there's a son who's in high school, and then the daughter who's junior high, and the daughter is like totally creepy. There's just something off about her. So good makings for a horror movie. It's 2 hours long. Again, if you like watching movies in the dark, go right ahead. Maybe have somebody with you. But if you're kind of like a little bit of a scaredy cat, but you still like that horror draw, watch it with the lights on and have the pause button ready.
Nice.
For you to go, what?
And this is streaming on Amazon?
On Amazon Prime.
Very cool. Thank you. Good pick.
Thank you.
So my super secret insightful pick this week is a bit of self-promotion.
Oh.
Friday night at 9, we released our latest podcast show called Insights into Tomorrow. During that show, my son, Sam, and I, we talk about current topics that have an impact on today's society and how those impacts carry us through into the future, and how they're going to impact him as he continues to grow and mature. Sam is in his 20s. He's in college at this point in time. So getting the perspective of someone his age is for an old fogey like me, a healthy thing. We had a very interesting discussion. Our first show was about gun violence. And we talked about the Second Amendment, historical rulings on the Second Amendment, and how the Second Amendment has evolved from the time of when the Constitution was written to where we are today. Some of those developments I found kind of disturbing, but it's a fluid document. Some of the things kind of scared me. How what probably should have been amendments to the Constitution turned out to be arbitrary rulings from the Supreme Court, and that's not restricted to just the Second Amendment. But we looked at deaths in the United States and what the leading causes of death were, and really, gun deaths don't even make the top 10, in the country. But there's a huge focus on gun violence when there's a mass shooting. We talked about some of the numbers where you've got over 500,000 people that die from heart disease. And, just slightly less than that, you have cancer. And, we talked about how the main form of cancer out there at this point in time is tobacco. And, everyone wants to see gun control legislation when, by an order of magnitude, we have more people dying from tobacco use, and the federal government subsidizes the tobacco industry. So we stayed on topic, but we talked about a lot of different things that influenced the topic itself. We looked at some of the options that are on the table for gun control moving forward, and we also looked at the numbers. We looked at how much money gun control and gun advocate lobbies were paying into political campaigns. And again, by an order of magnitude, the amount of money that the gun lobbies are pouring in far exceeds the gun control lobbies.
Of course.
By almost a factor of 10. The discouraging fact is America has the best politicians that money can buy. And lobbyists take advantage of that. So it was a constructive conversation. There was some things he and I agreed on, some things we didn't necessarily agree on. But I think it makes for a good subject matter discussion. We're going to be doing it monthly.
Okay.
So this episode was our October edition. We'll have another one coming out in November. We're working on topics for that. But it's available on our website. Well, not on our website yet. Scratch that. I haven't got it up there yet.
It's on YouTube.
It is on YouTube, and it is available for audio at podcast.insightsintotomorrow.com.
And it was posted on our Facebook page yesterday when it went live, and that is facebook.com/insightintothingspodcast.
So check it out. It's a little bit different than our other shows, and you might find it interesting and insightful, you might say. That was all I had for that one. Did we have any afterthoughts today?
No afterthoughts today.
No. We are doing, for our live audience, we are going to the Delaware Toy Show tomorrow at the Nerd Temple in Wilmington. And Newcastle. So if any of our local listeners are interested in doing that, that's always a great show to go to.
Yeah, the train show is today, and the toy show is tomorrow.
Right. And I'm hoping to pick up another piece of gold down there. I always seem to get at least one decent thing.
Right, there's always that
there.
one obscure Star Wars thing that you find. So
I scored my Empire Strikes Back carded Darth Vader down there, and that's my biggest score to date.
Yeah, I ended up getting the Mickey Mouse Playhouse from 1970s.
Yeah, so it's great if you're into Hess trucks, if you're into antique
Hess
toys.
trucks. They got tons of trucks down there. Even a lot of people that do the trains from today, a lot of them are still there. Tomorrow. So if you're into trains, they have that.
Old tin toys from the 50s and 60s, tons of those.
Video games.
A lot of modern toys down
Right.
there.
Bootlegged
Action figures.
DVDs.
Well, okay.
Kind of
We won't advertise the bootlegs.
Yeah.
But it's a huge variety down there.
Yeah,
It's a nice day. So that's it. I think we're done.
Yep.
We'll catch everyone next week with another great show. And we're out. Another one in the books.
All right. Have a good week, everyone.